Hi again. More biogeography stuff. The really last part of the chapter is talking about where species come from and what effect they have on ecosystem health, having a healthy ecosystem. So it's kind of three categories of plants based on this. There are native species, which are part of a healthy ecosystem. Usually they evolved in or near that area, and that's kind of a hard thing to say, but like you can genetically look at where an animal or plant came from, and if it's nearby, and let's say like mountain lions that live all over North and South America are native to all over North and South America, and their habitat's been reduced, but they originally like biologically genetically separated from other big cats in North America, migrated down into South America, speciated and turned into a couple different subvarieties of mountain lions, and then migrated back up. We can track all that based on current modern genetics, which is kind of cool. But native species, they're part of a healthy ecosystem. So they interact with other plants and animals and microorganisms in a positive way, which, like, mountain lions eat stuff. Is that a positive relationship? Yeah, if you have too many deer, then the deer eat all the trees and the saplings, and that causes soil erosion when people hit them with cars, and all kinds of trouble happens, which we see in like middle America right now. There's deer explosions because of populations because they have no natural predators, so people have to go, like you have to go and hunt them to keep their populations in control because there's no predators keeping deer populations in control, because you've lost part of that healthy ecosystem. So native species, plant or animal, microorganism, insect, that is part of a healthy ecosystem. Usually that means it evolved there. Now the next category of organism is exotic species. This is going to be some organism that was brought from somewhere else. Now the word brought, that implies that like people did it, and usually, yeah, people are the things that have brought most animals, plants, and insects unintentionally or intentionally from one place to another. Now there are some plants and animals that have done long distance migrations, like coconuts will float across the ocean for thousands of miles, across the Pacific and island hop, and arrive on different islands from thousands of miles. Is that exotic? At some point, they might have been exotic, and maybe they become part of the ecosystem. You have to study the actual ecosystem to figure that out. But usually, most of the time, probably, I'm guessing, over 90%, probably 99% of plants and animals that are exotic have been brought by people. One example of that would be like citrus in Southern California. Citrus is originally from Asia. Citrus doesn't want to freeze, so people ended up in Southern California and parts of North America and were like, hey, it doesn't freeze in a lot of these places. Let's grow citrus there. So all throughout Southern California, you have citrus ranches, and those are exotic. They were brought in from other parts of the world. They've been cultivated here, but they don't really, besides like taking over native plant space, they don't really have a negative effect on ecosystems, where once the citrus crop is there, yeah, the current native ecosystem has been removed, but the citrus orchard doesn't expand. And like if you abandon the citrus orchard, it's not going to grow out of control, and in next year it just takes over all your other crops. That doesn't happen. Many crop varieties that we eat, that people grow, have been brought from somewhere else to be grown. And like, rice is grown in Southern California. It's from Asia. Tomatoes are from South America. They were brought up here. They do really well up here. Potatoes are from South America. They were brought all over the world. You can grow potatoes pretty much everywhere. So a lot of crops are exotic. They don't spread out very easily. You usually have to like cultivate a crop or an exotic. So you might have exotic plants all over your yard. A lot of people see the word exotic and think, exotic means unique or special or attractive. Not necessarily, because like what other context do you see exotic with? Like, oh yeah, that person is exotic. I like the way they look. That's not the case. Exotic simply means from somewhere else. It doesn't necessarily have to be nice looking. That's not a part of it. Now, when an exotic species has negative effects on its new ecosystem, the place that it's been brought to. It's considered invasive. So think about the word invasive. If you get invaded, if somebody is invading another place, what are they doing? They're coming in, killing everything, destroying everything, taking over, and drastically negatively affecting the place that they are invading. That's an invasive species. You could easily argue that like people are the ultimate invasive species. We started in Central Africa, and then we spread out to cover the entire rest of the world. Like even Antarctica, there's people living there, even though like there's nothing growing in Antarctica. There's no, or not much, there's nothing to eat there. But we've invaded every part of the world, taken over ecosystems, and we've brought exotics and invasives with us. Okay, so I wouldn't normally consider like people an invasive species because we sort of operate outside of ecosystems. Which healthy ecosystem are we a part of? Good question. Yeah. Yeah, we're probably invasive species, but like, don't answer that on the test. Do not use people as your example on the exam. So an exotic species with negative effects on its new ecosystem. Many of these have been brought intentionally, and then it turned out, oh, this was an invasive species. Oops. A lot of them have been brought places, and oh, that was an invasive species, and it got there on my shoe by accident. If you go hiking, your shoes will get covered in like seeds, burrs, and wild oats and stuff, and those seeds are a lot of invasive species. And the way that they got where they were when you were hiking is probably from other people bringing them in on their shoes. Of like, well, why did you get it all over your shoes? Oh, because it's growing all over the trail. Why was it growing all over the trail? Partly, invasives tend to do really well in disturbed ecosystems, but also because they probably got there from somebody's shoe or somebody's dog's fur, and it fell off onto the ground and started growing. So a lot of like ecotourism places, if you go hiking through the rainforest, they'll have you like sanitize and disinfect your shoes or buy new shoes so that you don't bring in some new set of microorganisms and invasives from wherever you came from. So some examples of invasive species. African fountain grass, you'll see this growing all over Southern California. It's at PCC. It's in the San Gabriel's. Home Depot actually sells it because it's a drought-friendly plant. So in like the 2016 drought, when people were tearing out their grass, a lot of them went to the store, okay, I want to help the environment. I'm going to reduce water, not have normal lawn space. So Home Depot sells you this. Well, this has these kind of big fountain shapes of seeds. The wind picks those up and blows them everywhere, and they spread like crazy all over the place. So if your neighbor has them, well, you probably have it in your yard too. And if they get up into trails or open spaces, they take over really easily. Because they're grass, it also grows really quickly. So if there's a fire in a place, and California has plenty of fires, these will grow really quickly. So if there's a fire, their seeds will sit in the ground and survive. And then once the fire is done, you can have an entire hill or slope or burned area that's completely taken over by this because it grew the fastest before all the native species had a chance to recolonize that hill. Black mustard was brought here by the Spanish on purpose. It is edible. It's mustard. It's in the brassica family, like broccoli and cauliflower and a whole bunch of other. Look like Google brassicaceae if you want. But black mustard was brought here by the Spanish. You can eat it. It tastes kind of depending on like which plant you pick. Between broccoli and Dijon mustard. You can harvest the seeds and make your own mustard if you wanted to. But it's probably the worst invasive species that California has statewide. Everywhere that the Spanish went in the Age of Exploration up to like the 1800s, they brought black mustard with them. So you can find this in all parts of California. And then because Californians travel a lot, you can find this all over the world now. I've seen black mustard growing on effectively tundra slopes on the Big Island of Hawaii, where like there's very few plants. It's the very top of the Big Island where there's actually like snow in a permafrost lake. and there's black mustard growing next to it because some Californian brought their shoes and they had seeds in their shoes and it fell off on the ground. But this grows all over the place. It's very recognizable. In the springtime, it grows into these big green bushes with bright yellow flowers. So if you're driving on the freeway and you see hills that are covered in these beautiful yellow flowers, green plants, it's bad. Black mustard. Don't like it. You're not allowed to like it because it's invasive. You can eat it. Don't go picking yellow flowers and eating them just because I said so. Like, don't eat any plant that you're not sure about. Get some help identifying it. But it is edible. So, like, if you go hiking with me, we're eating black mustard the whole time. Yeah. So this is all over, probably the worst invasive. Oh, another thing that makes it bad is it's hard. Once you pull it out of the ground, the seeds can sit dormant in the soil for up to 10 years. So if you go into an area and say, okay, cool, we're going to restore this and remove all the invasives and let the natives grow back. Okay, you pull it out. Next year, place is full of black mustard again. So you have to pull those out again before they drop their seeds. And you have to do that again and again for 10 years. And after 10 years, if you got all the seeds, then the black mustard will stop coming back finally. And hopefully some hiker doesn't bring it back in. Eucalyptus is interesting. This is from Australia. Eucalyptus was brought in by Californians as a tree that grows really quickly, is drought tolerant, and they used it as a windbreak between farms. And so, okay, that's all helpful things for early citrus ranchers around Southern California. You need trees that grow fast. Farmers wanted something to block the winds, the Santa Anas, from blowing between orchards and cross-pollinating their plants so that your Valencia orange doesn't get mixed with the nectarine, and now you've got Valencia nectarines or something that happens. Like, you can hybridize citrus really easily. So they planted these as windbreaks. They also, like, okay, cool, cheap, quick wood. And then in Australia, where this grows all over the place, this is also very drought tolerant. Southern California, great. Well, this now grows in these kind of vast forests of eucalyptus in Southern California. Problem is, it chokes out other native species, so it lives in the same habitat space as our local native oaks and western sycamore trees. This drinks up all the water before our native trees can get it. And then it spreads quickly, grows quickly, like that's the reason it was brought here. And then kind of an unintended side effect of this, eucalyptus has really explosive sap. So when there's a fire, these trees will almost explode because the way the sap heats up. So it makes our wildfires way worse than they would be because of the way that the eucalyptus trees burn. Other fun thing is in Australia, where eucalyptus trees are native, many species are endangered because of habitat loss and because Australia has other invasive species from other parts of the world. So our coast live oak that's native to Southern California might be native and cherished, and we try to cultivate it here and promote healthy ecosystems. Well, if you brought one of those to Australia, it might grow really well, and it might choke out their native eucalyptus trees, where our native species are being choked out by their eucalyptus trees. So one person's native is another person's exotic. That's absolutely the case everywhere around the world. You might find, like, if you're driving around in Spain or Italy or France, you're going to see black mustard all over the place. Well, that's a native species there. And you're like, so, like, I have to hold back, destroy it, eradicate all the black mustard. They're like, no, it's our plant. We like it. So you could have that same situation all over the world with your invasives. All right. So remove invasives. Exotics are okay, but not great. If you're going to eat it, cool. Native species, this is what you want. This is a healthy ecosystem. All right. Bye-bye.